Nelson Mandela did not die in prison in the 1980s. He was released in 1990, served as president of South Africa, won the Nobel Peace Prize, and died in 2013 at the age of 95. This is not disputed. It is documented, it is historically verifiable in every detail. And yet thousands of people remember his death in prison. Not vaguely, not as a passing impression. They remember the news coverage. They remember the funeral footage. Some remember his widow giving a speech. The memories are specific, detailed, emotionally real, and completely false. This is the Mandela Effect, the name given to a phenomenon in which large numbers of people share a memory of something that never happened or remember something differently from how it actually was. And the memory they share is specific, consistent, and feels completely real to the people who hold it. The name comes from a woman named Fiona Broome, who in 2009 discovered at a conference that other attendees shared her memory of Mandela dying in prison. She started a website documenting similar cases, and within a short time she had collected hundreds of examples from thousands of people, all remembering specific things that the historical record shows either never happened or happened differently. The examples are not obscure. Darth Vader does not say, "Luke, I am your father," in The Empire Strikes Back. He says, "No, I am your father." The evil queen in Snow White does not say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." She says, "Magic mirror on the wall." Forrest Gump does not say, "Life is like a box of chocolates." He says, "Life was like a box of chocolates." The Monopoly Man does not have a monocle. He never did. Kit Kat does not have a hyphen. It never did. Curious George does not have a tail. He never did. Chartreuse is not a dark red purple. It is a yellow green. These are not matters of interpretation. They are verifiable facts. And for each one of them, thousands or millions of people have a specific, confident, often emotionally defended memory of the incorrect version. Not a vague impression, a memory. The question the Mandela Effect raises is one of the most interesting in all of cognitive science. How is it possible for large numbers of people to share the same specific false memory? And the answer, the actual scientific answer, not the fringe theory, not the parallel universe explanation, is considerably stranger and more revealing than most people realize. Let's start with what memory actually is, because most people carry a model of memory that is fundamentally wrong. They think of memory as a recording, a faithful capture of what happened, stored and retrievable, the way a photograph stores light, the way a video stores events, fixed, stable, accurate until degraded. This model is wrong in almost every important detail. Memory is not a recording. Memory is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you are not playing back a stored file. You are rebuilding an experience from fragments, sensory details, emotional residue, contextual cues, and the reconstruction is shaped by everything that has happened to you since the original experience, including things you were told, including things you read, including other memories that are similar. This is not a flaw in the memory system. It is the memory system working as designed. The brain does not store experiences as complete records because complete records are metabolically expensive and largely unnecessary. What matters from a survival perspective is not the exact details of an experience, but the meaning of it, the pattern, the lesson, the emotional significance. The brain stores those efficiently and reconstructs the details on demand, filling in gaps with what seems most plausible given everything else it knows. The problem is that the reconstruction process introduces errors, and those errors are not random. They are systematic. They follow predictable patterns. And one of the most consistent patterns is that reconstruction is influenced by expectations, by what the rememberer thinks should have happened, what they have heard others say happened, and what version of events is most culturally familiar to them. This is where the Mandela Effect begins to make sense. Consider the Darth Vader misquote. "Luke, I am your father," is one of the most famous lines in cinema history. It has been quoted, parodied, referenced, and repeated billions of times. The actual line, "No, I am your father," lacks the name Luke. When the line is reconstructed from memory, the brain fills in the most familiar, culturally consistent version. Luke's name belongs in that moment. It has been there in every parody, every reference, every cultural iteration. So when someone reconstructs the memory of hearing the line, Luke's name is there because it seems right, because it fits the pattern, because every other iteration of the line has included it. This is called the misinformation effect, and it is one of the most robustly documented phenomena in memory science. Research pioneered by Elizabeth Loftus at the University of California shows that memories can be systematically altered by information received after the original experience. In her landmark studies, participants who watched footage of a car accident were later asked questions containing misleading details. How fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other versus when they hit each other? Participants who received the misinformation remembered the accident differently, reporting broken glass that wasn't there, estimating higher speeds, and constructing a more violent event than the footage showed. The misinformation had been incorporated into the memory itself, not tagged as external information, stored as part of the original experience. What Loftus demonstrated in a controlled laboratory setting, the Mandela Effect demonstrates at cultural scale. Every time the Darth Vader line is quoted incorrectly in a comedy sketch, in a meme, in a casual conversation, it becomes a piece of post-event misinformation that, for millions of people, is incorporated into their reconstruction of the original scene. The incorrect version becomes the culturally dominant version, and when memory reconstructs the scene, it uses the culturally dominant version as its template. But the misinformation effect alone does not fully explain the Mandela effect, because the misinformation effect predicts that memories will be altered by specific misinformation received after the fact. What it does not easily explain is why people have strong, specific, emotionally defended memories of things they have never actually encountered. The Mandela prison death, for example, is not a widely circulated alternative version of events the way the Vader misquote is. Nobody made a movie or a sketch where Mandela died in prison. So where does that memory come from? The answer involves a different aspect of memory construction, the role of schemas. A schema is a mental framework built from accumulated experience, a general knowledge structure that tells the brain what to expect in a given situation. When you encounter a scene that fits a schema, your brain uses the schema to fill in gaps in perception and memory. You don't need to perceive every detail of a typical kitchen to know what's in it. The schema provides the contents. You perceive some and infer the rest. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for decades, widely known as a political prisoner, and in the 1980s, the possibility of his death in prison was a genuine and discussed concern among anti-apartheid activists worldwide. For many people who followed the anti-apartheid movement, the schema, political prisoner, potentially killed before release, was strongly active. When Mandela did eventually die in 2013, the death in captivity schema was available, emotionally resonant, and, for some people, may have been incorporated into the reconstruction of an earlier memory. The schema provided the template. The memory provided the emotional reality. The reconstruction merged the two. This process, schema-driven reconstruction, is also why the Mandela effect tends to cluster around emotionally significant cultural touchstones. Darth Vader, the Evil Queen, Forrest Gump, Monopoly. These are not obscure references. They are cultural landmarks that almost everyone has encountered, discussed, and thought about many times. Each encounter is an opportunity for the reconstruction to be shaped by the culturally dominant version. And the culturally dominant version is often not the accurate one. It is the one that spread most easily, the one that fit the schema, the one that sounded most like what should have been said. There is a specific cognitive mechanism that makes this worse. It is called the imagination inflation effect, documented by researchers including Maryanne Garry at Victoria University of Wellington. When people imagine an event, even an event they know did not happen, their confidence that the event actually occurred increases. Simply imagining a childhood experience that never happened makes people more likely to later remember remember it as something that actually happened. The imagination and the memory use the same neural machinery. The brain, reconstructing a memory, cannot reliably distinguish between what was perceived and what was imagined during the reconstruction process. This means that every time someone imagines Mandela dying in prison, considers the possibility, discusses it, thinks through what the news coverage might have looked like, they are doing something neurologically similar to remembering it. The imagination is being stored by the same systems that store genuine experience, and when the memory is later reconstructed, the imagined details are available alongside the genuine ones. Sometimes they win. The social dimension of the Mandela effect adds another layer. Memory is not only a cognitive process, it is a social one. We discuss our memories with other people. We use other people's memories to fill in gaps in our own. We update our memories based on the consensus of the groups we belong to. When a community of people discusses a shared memory, even a false one, the social reinforcement of the false version makes it more vivid, more detailed, and more confident in each individual's reconstruction. The community creates and maintains the shared false memory by discussing it, even while discussing it as a memory rather than a confabulation. This is why the Mandela effect spread so rapidly after Fiona Broome created her website. The website created a community that discussed and reinforced specific false memories. People who had a vague sense that something was different read others' confident accounts and updated their own reconstructions toward the version described. The community became the misinformation source for its own members, each person's confident account reinforcing the next person's reconstruction. None of this is sinister. None of it requires intentional deception. It is the memory system doing what it evolved to do, using social information to update and refine reconstructions, applied to a situation where the social information happens to be wrong. What the Mandela effect reveals, more clearly than almost any other psychological phenomenon, is how contingent and reconstructive memory actually is. Your memories are not a record of your past. They are a current model of your past, built and maintained by the brain using every available source of information, including what you have been told, what you have imagined, what you expect, and what the people around you believe. The model is updated constantly. It feels like a record. It is not. This should not be alarming. It is, mostly, functional. The reconstructive system works well enough to navigate a life. It gives you continuity of experience, a sense of where you have been and who you are. It just does not give you accuracy. And accuracy and the feeling of accuracy are not the same thing. The retired school teacher who remembers Mandela's funeral in the 1980s is not lying. She is not confused in any simple sense. She has a genuine, emotionally real memory that she experienced as authentic and still does. The memory is wrong about what happened. It is entirely accurate about how memory works. Every memory you have ever trusted is a reconstruction. Every recollection you have presented as fact is a model. Every time you have said, "I remember this clearly," the clarity was real. The "this" was a construction. Somewhere in your memory right now is something that never happened. You don't know which one. Neither does anyone else. But it is there, and it feels exactly like all the ones that did.